Anyway, let's go to back to our busy telephones here. We got Mitzi is in Wisconsin. Mitzi, hi.
Hi, Mr. Hannity. I was calling to let you know that I agree completely with everything you've said regarding amnesty today and the rule of law. However, that only makes me all the more confused as to why it is you're smearing Ron Paul and trying to silence him.
I'm not trying to silence Ron Paul. I put him on Hannity and Combs after the debate the other night. We just had a disagreement. I find his remarks offensive. I find him totally and completely outrageous and wrong. I think he's ill-informed. You know, look, there's a lot of... Look, here's what he said.
They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years.
I'm sorry. I find his analysis naive, frankly ill-informed, and ridiculous. So I'm not trying to silence him. I'm put him on TV that night.
Well, his comments come directly from the CIA's own comments in the 9/11 Commission report.
Listen. You go believe whatever conspiracy you want. I'm not gonna sit here and waste time on the air arguing it. If you believe that, let me tell you something. You got to understand, this enemy's coming here. They have dedicated their lives to destroying us. And if you don't get that, and Ron Paul doesn't get it, I just gently disagree.
Do you think that the U.S. or UN forces should have moved into Baghdad?
No.
Why not?
Because if we'd gone to Baghdad, we would have been all alone. There wouldn't have been anybody else with us. It would have been a U.S. occupation of Iraq. None of the Arab forces that were willing to fight with us in Kuwait were willing to invade Iraq. Once you got to Iraq and took it over and took down Saddam Hussein's government, then what are you going to put in its place? That's a very volatile part of the world, and if you take down the central government in Iraq, you can easily end up seeing pieces of Iraq fly off. Part of it the Syrians would like to have to the west. Part of eastern Iraq the Iranians would like to claim, fought over for 8 years. In the north, you've got the Kurds, and if the Kurds spin loose and join with the Kurds in Turkey, then you threaten the territorial integrity of Turkey. It's a quagmire if you go that far and try to take over Iraq. The other thing was casualties. Everyone was impressed with the fact that we were able to do our job with as few casualties as we had. But for the 146 Americans killed in action and for their families, it wasn't a cheap war. And the question for the president, in terms of whether or not we went on to Baghdad and took additional casualties in an effort to get Saddam Hussein, was how many additional dead Americans is Saddam worth? And our judgment was not very many, and I think we got it right.
Special interests and the demented philosophy of conquest have driven most wars throughout all of history. Rarely has the cause of liberty, as it was in our own revolution, been the driving force. In recent decades, our policies have been driven by neoconservative empire radicalism, profiteering in the military-industrial complex, misplaced do-good internationalism, mercantilistic notions regarding the need to control natural resources, and blind loyalty to various governments in the Middle East. For all the misinformation given the American people to justify our invasion, such as our need for national security, enforcing UN resolutions, removing a dictator, establishing a democracy, protecting our oil, the argument has been reduced to this: if we leave now, Iraq will be left in a mess, implying the implausible, that if we stay, it won't be a mess.
All right. Now, I understand that there is a presidential candidates forum that the Iowans for Tax Relief and the Iowa Christian Alliance are putting together. They've invited Republican candidates to appear. All the Republican candidates have been invited except your candidate.
Yes, we found that out the other day kind of by mistake, but we were getting some phone calls. We were getting some phone calls from Iowa supporters of Dr. Paul, and they asked why we weren't on the schedule. And come to find out, we didn't even know about the event, so we shuffled around to try to inquire about it. And Lou Moore, our campaign chairman here, did make some phone calls, and we were told that Dr. Paul was not going to be invited. He wasn't invited. He wasn't going to be able to participate, and we were simply shut down. So that was bad news for us.
Right back to Conversation. Michelson here with you. We're on our Newsmaker line. Kent Snyder is with the Ron Paul for President campaign, and he's wondering why his candidate's been excluded from an upcoming presidential candidate forum sponsored by Iowans for Tax Relief and the Iowa Christian Alliance. Ed Failor represents the Iowans for Tax Relief. And, Ed, we'd be curious about the exclusion, sir.
Sure. Well, I'm Executive Vice President of Iowans for Tax Relief. I wasn't sure what title you gave me. I didn't want to assume one that I don't have.
Okay.
Months ago, when you start planning something of this scope, we sat down and we made a determination of, what would be in the best interest of our members. We, as 501c3s and C4s, we invited Democrats and Republicans alike. You operate on the assumption there's a potential that all could say yes. So you move forward and saying, what can we, handle in a day? And so therefore we had to draw a line of viability because we could not, every person who's claimed that they're a candidate for president, we could not include. We set a certain line of viability so we could manage the event and made our decision months ago and invited who we were going to invite and who we thought would serve our memberships within Iowa, their interests in hearing from the most credible candidates for president.
That's so if Senator McCain says, "Hey, I'd like to come tomorrow," you'd say no? Or if Senator Hillary says that she'd like to come and talk to you guys, you'd say no?
No, then you didn't understand me. I said we invited them.
Well, if they change their mind, would you say no?
If they, that's hypothetical. We would have a discussion about it, but that would still be someone we invited saying that they were interested in coming.
Texting your votes. Who do you think was the winner of tonight's debate? Just text your vote to 36988. By the way, here's a look at the early results of our text message poll. In first place, Ron Paul, surprisingly, 30%.